the impact of AI for the advertising industry. Of course, you heard all about Siri, you heard about Cortana, you heard about Alexa. Everybody who's anybody is trying to push the boundaries, how to deal with anything, with everything, with AI. And you know, where are we going to do? What's happening? What's the industry? That's the place? And I would like you to meet very interesting people. We have a great panel for you. And please, if you hear the names, they're expert, they're rock stars in their field. Please give them a rock star applause when I call out the names. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jordan Bitterman, CMO of IBM Watson Content and IoT Platform. Please give a warm welcome to Jordan Bitterman, no, sorry, for Beck Kloss, Global Lead Advertising and Merchandising from eBay. Please welcome Rajeev, Goel, CEO and co-founder of PubMatic. And we do have some Babak, Hodjat, CEO and CEO of co-founder of Sentient. And the lovely panel will be hosted by my colleague. His name goes by the name Jim Cooper. Give me some more energy. You're not tired, man.
Welcome all. Thanks for that great introduction. I feel really energized. And how about you guys?
Feeling good.
This is the experience hall. That was an
absolutely.
experience. That was pretty cool.
So AI and advertising is a huge topic. Let's just start with an all play, just to warm you guys up. What is the brand marketing ecosystem in advertising underestimating about AI right now? And we'll start with you, Jordan.
Well, I think we actually probably overestimate parts of it and underestimate parts of it. There's a lot of signal and noise right now. So obviously, there's a lot of aspects to AI that the marketing is probably ahead of the technology. In other cases, we're ready to go. There are definitely products and services that are ready. I think in a lot of cases, brands and agencies have to just start making decisions. They have to make decisions to start moving some chips into the middle of the table. There's never going to be a perfect solution, at least in the next 2 to 3 years. And so the most important part is just to move.
Yeah, to build on that, AI is here. It's not something that's coming. It's something we need to plan for as manifestations kind of unfold and technological capabilities advance. But from the targeting that a brand would use today, from the contextualization that they would employ to kind of fit a message natively within content, all of those elements are here. So to kind of your point, it's about prioritizing what capabilities fit best with the objectives that you have for a particular campaign.
Great, and speaking from perspective of what we do, helping publishers monetize their inventory, one of the things we're most excited about is huge opportunity to save infrastructure costs. And I think as you look at what's happening in ad tech, as we're here at Dmexco, there's a lot of consolidation happening, and a lot of those companies that are being consolidated are not viable standalone businesses. But we see great opportunity to drive costs down in infrastructure, which I'm sure we'll talk more about.
Absolutely. Babak?
Yeah, AI is here, but AI is hard. And I think one aspect of AI in advertising that still needs more work is the context of the user and capturing what the user wants in the here and now versus the over-reliance on historical data and building models that are more or less static.
Beck, I know that you spent a lot of time thinking about the science and statistics at eBay. How do you balance the power of AI and the machine learning and the data it churns out in tsunami form with the customer experience?
Yeah, I think one thing that we think a lot about at eBay is how do we kind of marry the best of man and machine? eBay has more than 1.5 billion things for sale. So anything that we do has to be incredibly scalable. And we get that from leveraging AI capabilities. But how do we take the best of either the category managers that we may have or the curators and harvest those signals from the individuals, but in a way that is appropriate and can be fed into deep learning models? So we spend a lot of time thinking about training data. If you look at the science of something like machine learning, you have to train it through a number of different examples, both positive and negative, for it to be able to predict the outcome that you're ultimately looking for. I think that training data is where humans can really assist to make things successful.
Jordan, in our pre-interview before this, you said that it's dangerous to box check AI. What did you mean by that? And is that just something that, are you finding that in your travels that people are just sort of doing AI because they feel they have to? And what are the dangers of that?
The first thing, just like anything, whether it's marketing, whether it's other aspects of business, it just goes objective, strategies, tactics. And if we're just starting with tactics, then we're not doing things right. And at the end of the day, the first thing that we have to figure out from a marketing perspective when we're thinking about AI or anything for that matter is what are we trying to solve? There is so much data that exists in the world that it's easy to be enticed by, let's just go solve different problems and see what happens. And I think it's really important not to box check. It's very important to figure out what are we going to solve, because this takes time, it takes money. And you know what, in a lot of organizations, we also find that from an innovation perspective, sometimes you don't get multiple chances to do things. Your organization might stop you at some point and say, well, the last thing you did didn't necessarily work out as well as we would have hoped. Hopefully, everyone works at great organizations that put innovation at a premium, and this certainly is that in a lot of ways. But I think it's all about trying to find the right objectives and then try to go solve for them. That then begets the data and the strategies and the tactics.
Beck, is it all about essentially just trusting the AI to do the right thing?
It's about posing the right problem for the AI to solve. And that posing of a problem, is not very simple. Obviously the domain experts do know their field very well, but typically they're attuned to coming up with the solution versus actually posing the problem. What are we optimizing for? What is our user base used to seeing, and how do they interact? And what is the most relevant pieces of information that that can be used by the AI? It's not necessarily about big data, it's about good data and relevant data, and that's very, very important to be able to identify.
There's also like a freedom, though, with AI in a way that you have to almost let go and let it help you do things like form creative patterns and things like that. Is that something that people need to sort of unclench a little bit about AI?
That definitely is the case. I mean, in our case with Sentient Ascend, we do find that in most cases when people want to design a new website, it's all about getting it right that first time for that B, so that when they do the A/B test, they can check to see whether A is better than B. Well, 6 times out of 7, that fails. But when we tell them, just go out and design variations to design elements, to the elements in your page, and let the AI decide how to configure them, put them together, it's usually a learning that has to go through for the designers. Ultimately, they love it because they think that it's opening their hands to be able to try out all sorts of different things and then allow the AI to put them together and test them real time. But yeah, I mean, even using a system that's AI and you're just only posing the problem to it is not as simple as we think.
Rajeev, back to you sort of touched on it about infrastructure cost in terms of the publisher. How is the publisher and programmatic evolving in this space, and what is like floor pricing and things like that? What are some of the really sort of core business propositions that AI is going to really tackle and adjust going forward?
Yeah, I think some of the things that publishers really care about is how do we deliver the most relevant ad.
Slides when you're ready.
Perfect. Yeah, how do we deliver the most relevant ad to the user, and also how do we make sure that publishers are generating the most possible revenue from each of those ads. So yeah, we can flip to the case study real quick. I don't know if you can call that up. So one of the things we did is we use machine learning algorithms to figure out what is the optimal price floor for an ad.
Can we cue that? There we go. Sorry.
There we go. So great. So on this slide here, what we're showing is, we process tens of billions of ad impressions every day. We generate about 500 terabytes of data every day. So huge amounts of data volume. And I think, with header bidding and everything that's happening in programmatic, those volumes are proliferating. If we took 10 billion ad impressions, so part of a day, and we sent that to all 150 DSPs that we're working with, that would be 1.5 trillion ad requests going out to DSPs. Now, the reality is one DSP is going to win, each of those ad impressions. So if you build to the next, we created a bid throttling layer. If you can hit next on the slide, we created a bid throttling layer that actually figures out what are the right 10 or 15 DSPs to send an ad impression to, rather than all 150. And so this protects data from a publisher perspective. It improves latency of the ad experience. And then it also saves tremendous amount of costs, not only for us, but also for the DSPs that we're working with. So tremendous benefits in terms of infrastructure cost savings across the entire ecosystem, in addition to improving data retention.
As someone who's going to take this out to market, how well understood is this?
Yeah, I think it is becoming more and more understood. If you look at, just this quarter, we had 3 ad tech companies that are public get acquired. All of them were losing money, right? And I think one of the reasons they got acquired is they didn't have sustainable business models. And so, if you're a CEO or a C-level executive here in the audience, you want to make sure that you do have a sustainable business model. And I think the use of AI and machine learning, where previously we would create rules that said, okay, well, if this rule hits, then we'll send the impression to the DSP. Now we don't have to bother with that. The data can tell us, the training models, as Beck talked about, can tell us, well, what are the characteristics of when a DSP bids, and we don't need to really interfere with that.
Right. Beck, you have something called a cannibalization decision engine at eBay. What the hell does that thing do?
Yeah, so
We advanced
you said that we weren't going to use that word. That's a complicated. So we partner actually very closely with Rajeev and PubMatic, and what he kind of described is one side of this. If we think about the eBay ecosystem, one side of the coin for publishers, right? How do we increase or maximize the ad dollars that we get from showing units across our marketplace? The other side of the coin is our transaction revenue business, right? Connecting buyers and sellers so people buy stuff. And I think this is, even if you may not be an e-commerce business, you have this kind of comparable notion as a publisher of engagement. You want to keep users engaged. That means they're going to share content. In some cases, they're going to create content that'll then drive more users onto the platform that helps with advertising revenue. So just as you would want to kind of maximize yield on the ad side, we use the cannibalization decision engine to, in an a priori manner, estimate the transaction revenue that would be potentially lost from showing a particular ad placement to a user. And it's very important that we do that in real time. Why would we lose money? It's from things like incurring additional latency. There could be distractibility associated with the ad unit. There could be opportunity costs, because we could serve like organic merchandising content in that slot. So what we do, it's a technique called gradient boosted decision trees. We have a number of factors about the user, right? Their individual, their historical purchase patterns, what have you, about the context, what are they searching for, where are they in the shopping journey, as well as what technology are they using. Do they have a particularly slow browser? And bringing that all together, we can kind of create this ratio that says, hey, we think we'd make 4 ad dollars for maybe every 1 transaction dollar that we would lose. And what I'd say is you don't necessarily need to deploy AI to gain these kinds of insights. If you're working at a publisher, you could just do a 2x2 segmentation that says, what are my most valuable customers from engagement versus what are the most valuable users from an advertising perspective, right? To see these scenarios where, high value to ads, low engagement, serve lots of ads, or low price floor is what you would recommend. The inverse, super high value engagement, but low value to advertiser, maybe a high place for to decrease that experience. So you can really balance both sides of the coin with AI and machine learning.
So what's cool about that is they can pass us a floor price in the bid request, and then we have our own machine learning algorithms that are looking at trillions of bids every week that we see, and we're predicting what do we think each advertiser is going to pay for an ad impression, and then we can enhance the revenue that eBay or any other publisher that we're working with can yield.
Jordan, IoT, I mean, that spins off so much data. Is that really the engine that's going to make AI a viable proposition as a marketing tool?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in our world, our group is responsible for our weather business, but we also have responsibility for an IoT platform. And just in the last 2 hurricanes that hit the United States over the last few weeks, we did about little over a half a trillion different API calls. And a lot of that information is going back and forth. It's not just about us receiving a call for a forecast from a location, but it's us transmitting that data. And so for us, whether it's about something core to our business and weather, or you see it in autonomous driving as well. If we wanted to have an autonomous driving experience from Cologne to Frankfurt, let's say, we've got to be receiving information from smartphones, from cars, from traffic lights, from satellites, from everywhere. And so that whole experience, to be able to have an AI-powered experience like autonomous driving, needs to be informed by IoT.
Yeah. Babak, you've got some interesting products like Ascend, and I think Aware, is that right? Talk to us about how they're affecting things like shopping and sort of the customer journey.
For sure. So in the case of Aware, how do you AI enable the shopping journey? Well, you have AI first learn what is there for sale and represent the user as if a shopping assistant would. And so when the users go to these websites, such as we're deployed with Skechers or Sunglass Hut, and you start interacting with the content there, in some cases the AI isn't really keying off of even historical data. It's keying off of that first click that you put in there. And that first item that you click on gives the AI a notion of, this is the subset of features that are interesting, and what you didn't click on are the subset of features that are less interesting. And as you go through the next click and the next click after that, very quickly it hones in on exactly what it is that you're looking for. And so conversion rates go up by a factor of 20%, 30%, almost 40%. Which is a huge difference, simply because the AI understands what is there for sale, and it's not only clicking off of historical or cohort-based data. In the case of Ascend, I'll give you some examples. Clicksco is one of our customers. They have website properties. I think there's 14 websites in 11 different countries. Some of them aren't getting that much traffic, to the point where they couldn't do A/B testing to test new designs. But the AI was able to affect improvements in conversion rates in the factor of 15 to 17, 18%, even with low traffic, and on combinations of designs that would blow into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different, to millions of different possible designs. So very, very large search space. You don't have to traverse the whole thing or randomly pick from it. The AI decides, based on the feedback it's getting real time from the different users, which design works best.
Beck, you had a very interesting point about AI and its impact on the video ecosystem and the advertising in video. Can you unpack that for us a little bit, and from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, AI, broad field, many different sub-disciplines, one of which that's going to change our world in a multitude of ways is called computer vision. Right? So the ability to recognize objects within a picture or frames within a movie. It's the technology that's employed in self-driving cars, right? So they kind of know what they're going, know it's a stop sign, know it's a human being. I think when you look at the advances that have happened in targeting, right, say for users, that's because we've been able to associate this very rich set of both demographic and behavioral actions to this kind of user entity. Video, especially user-generated video, kind of remains a black box today. Maybe somebody's thrown a couple of tags. Maybe you can infer a few things from the title. But I mean, we're really like scratching for scraps here, right? Imagine a world where you are able to process videos in real time and recognize not only the objects, but the actions and the individuals that are coming together in concert for whatever that piece of content is. That would enable very native experiences, beyond just our standard pre-rolls panels and banners, what have you. I'll just give you 2 examples. We run an accelerator in New York in our eBay office called Friends of eBay, a couple of companies that have come out of there. One is this company called Uru that uses computer vision to identify flat surfaces within user-generated content. So imagine I've just uploaded a video of, I don't know, hanging out at a skate park with my friend. You could have Etnies or whatever skating logo literally painted on that ramp, right, in such a way that's so native and engaging. The second, which I think is even more high impact, is being able to identify products that are being worn, being used in user-generated content in real time. That would allow brands that have either the same or comparable inventory to kind of show product listing ads. I think it will be the birth of a whole new format.
Rajeev, this is all really intense, it's all really new and coming at us so fast. How do companies build the right environments and cultures really to really sort of step into this new world in a way that's they're not going to make too many mistakes?
Yeah, I think so. A couple things that I think are important. You know, we've been doing this not for too long, maybe about 2 years, but a couple lessons we've learned. One is be very clear on what are the use cases you're trying to solve. So is it infrastructure cost? Is it publisher yield? Is it better ad experience? And I think you have to define each of those problems very well. The second is to think about where does your competitive advantage come from? Is it going to come from having better algorithms, or is it going to come from the data that you're sitting on top of, right? In our case, I don't think we're building algorithms that are necessarily anything that somebody else couldn't build, but we do generate, like I said earlier, 500 terabytes of data every day from users, from ad impressions, from advertisers, and I think that's a pretty hard thing to replicate. There's only a handful of other companies that are at that scale, and so we really think about the data as being our key competitive advantage, and that causes us to then build in a very different way. So we invest a lot in environments and flows to manage that data, to store that data, and to be able to process that data in different environments so that we can build the right algorithms. But we put more money into that than we do on hiring every ML engineer that we can find out there to build better algorithms.
Jordan, sort of along those same lines, what have been some of the really important teaching moments at the Weather Company in the past year about structure, talent, process around AI, and how do you balance the power of this cognitive engine that you have at your disposal with the human part of your business?
Well, I would answer the first part of that by saying that there have been a number of moments where we've had clients who have said, look, we just want bespoke. We want to build something totally from scratch. And so this thing that you're building over here that'll be off the shelf, we don't really want that. We want this. And that's not scalable. It's not scalable for anybody, actually. So one of our big moments has been, how can we do both? How can we harness the power of IBM more broadly? Because that's what IBM does very well about building bespoke projects for customers. And then how do we service the advertising industry specifically with products that are off the shelf? And in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to be rolling those out. So I think the learning there has been we can't just go off the shelf. It has to be some combination of those two things. Your second part of your question, because I'm not a professional panelist, I'm forgetting it right now.
You're doing just fine. How do you balance all this? How do you balance the cognitive with the programmatic, with the creative, and keep a harmony? It seems like this could spin out of control and cause problems.
It can. I think a lot of it is, the most important thing is just listening. It's listening to our customers. What is it that our clients and customers want, whether it's in the B2B space or in the ad world? I know that sounds like a really wimpy answer, but listening's really important because whether you're a client trying to make use of AI or whether you're an organization trying to put products into the marketplace, it's very easy, almost tantalizing in this space to just want to do everything, and you can't because there's limited resources and limited time. And so it's a clutch. We've got a business right now that's doing very well, but we know that over time we have to, hit on that clutch, shift gears, and try to do more. And so what are the 1 or 2, maybe 3 things a year that we can be doing new and different as opposed to having big eyes and doing everything?
Babak, who's really started to really figure this out, and who should the industry look to role model how AI rolls out?
Us.
I was thinking more on the brand side.
Yeah,
Or the publisher side, or
I think currently we're in really the formative stages of adopting AI, and everybody's kind of going out and doing their own thing, either looking at their own data or their own specific problem to solve. No one really comes to mind specifically other than the big guys. Google and Facebook is doing a lot actually internally. They've developed a lot of tools that they use exclusively internally just for their own usage that is very, very impressive as far as the level of AI that they use and so forth. So unfortunately, they don't share those tools externally, and for privacy reasons and so forth. Neither the data nor the actual processing capacity is available for others. Google is taking a little bit of a different stance there, and much more of what they do is out there for others to use. So,
is that a point of concern? Do you think that these big, I'll refrain from using the term that everybody uses for them, but that they have so much control, and how does that control inform the early stage rollout of AI?
Is it a cause for concern? I think outside of the scope of the AI discussion, absolutely, I think it is. But that's really outside of the scope of this panel or my own expertise. But as far as AI is concerned, no, I don't think so. I think we're at the early stages. I always use this analogy. It's like 30 years ago when computing became cheap and everybody wanted to computerize. And now AI is becoming more and more ubiquitous, both in our understanding of its applicability, and people like Google actually and Facebook have put out technologies and platforms for generic, for example, deep learning based building systems and so forth. Where we do need to be concerned, though, is a lot of these models do require a lot of processing capacity and very, very large data sets. And that is not accessible to most other companies.
All right, I guess the band's playing. That means we got to wrap it up. Just really fast, though.
By the band.
Actually, I think we're out of time. So, guys, it was a huge topic. We didn't get to nearly as many questions as I had hoped. But thanks a lot for the panel.